The Breeders Cup Distaff quickly went from a race that, look, it looked like it was going to be a war on paper earlier this year. You had so many big names all over the place. Now you've still got big names, but I think there are more questions than necessarily answers headed into it. Let's start off with the Spinster, which historically is not the most productive prep. Let's be honest. Many of the races coming out of Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup have not been necessarily the most productive. Calling a spade a spade. But this race here, Blue Prize anyway, looked like a horse that, on her best day, she can run figs that are competitive. She loves Churchill Downs. So a good effort in the Spinster, in theory, would set her up for a good effort in the Distaff. We'll find out if that's the case. She gave you a good effort, but it was a little bit of a head scratcher. Here's the stretch run.
Prize strides forward for the lead off the turn. Pacific Wind up the inside. Talk Veuve to me is there on the outside. Champagne Problems in fourth. Final furlong. Oh, Blue Prize running erratically. Ducks out in the stretch. Pacific Wind room to the inside along with Champagne Problems. Blue Prize all the way out to the center of the track with Champagne Problems up the inside. Blue Prize, Champagne Problems. Erratic run and all. Blue Prize and Joe Bravo.
Blue Prize is usually as professional gets. So when she takes a right-hand turn trying to go to Louisville before the race is even over, that's a problem. I don't know what to make of that. Joe Bravo got into her left-handed. The first time he hit her left-handed, she didn't move. Second time is when she took a right-hand turn. I don't know what to make of that, but to be honest with you, I don't want to see that leading in to the biggest race of her career against the best horses she's ever faced. I've never genuinely looked at her as a proper grade 1 animal. No disrespect to the connections. I feel like she is slightly below the best of the best. But, having said that, I continue to look at this division a little bit more and more, and I go, maybe it's not as cut and dry as I thought it was. Maybe she is a little bit more interesting. We'll find out. Now, on the flip side, you had a race like the Zenyatta out at Santa Anita, where this was really, it felt like it was crystal clear. Abel Tasman, this is going to be, she'll be 85, 90%. She'll go out there. She'll get the job done. Might not be the fastest race of her career, but if she runs, I don't know, 90% of what she did in that personal ensign up at Saratoga against Elate, she wins by 5. Instead, we got an unmitigated disaster. And another Baffert ended up still winning. Here's the stretch run.
Vale Dory takes a slender lead from Shenandoah Queen. 2 lengths Lamuna. La Force is next. And Abel Tasman in 5th position, doing absolutely nothing. Vale Dory from Shenandoah Queen, followed by La Force and Lamuna. The blinkers have sharpened up Vale Dory. She's in front close to home, and Vale Dory takes the Zenyatta from La Force, Shenandoah Queen, Lamuna.
So, let's start off with Vale Dory, the winner. Vale Dory is a horse that I'm not totally convinced that a mile on an eighth is her game. Myself and Illman have long said we'd love to see her go 7/8 of a mile in the filly and mare sprint. I don't think that's going to happen. I think she's going to run here in the Distaff. Her form in 2018 had been poor to bad. And all of a sudden, she's turned it around, and this was a very good effort. Now, if you think that she can build on this, perhaps she's an interesting sort of price in a race like this. Baffert can ship into Churchill Downs. That's not a problem whatsoever. She has a little bit of versatility. She has a little bit of speed, but she doesn't have to be, guns blazing going to the front. I'm not sold on the distance. To be honest with you, I'm not sold on the ability. I don't know that she is quite this good. You also had La Force in that race. If she were to go to the Distaff, at most I could use her underneath. To me, she is nothing more than a nibbler. I know she's faced some very good fillies and mares, but she's 2 for 23, I think, lifetime now with just a boatload of second and third place finishers. If you were to use her, I shouldn't say you. If I'm going to use her, it is strictly underneath. I will not be using her on top. Abel Tasman is the one that you really need to make a decision on, because it's one of those things. I had long thought about it, and I was like, well, there are alternatives to Abel Tasman, even if she does what she's supposed to do in the Zenyatta. You can look at the 3-year-olds, who we'll talk about here in a second. You can look at some of these older horses. But when you look at it on paper, and you're really just being honest, scrub the names. Do it like they do with like the NCAA tournament when they're going through, and it's Selection Sunday, and the committee is releasing all the teams and who's seated where, da-da-da-da. And you do that sort of blind resume test. And you put, Team A and Team B. and they give you all the vitals, all the details. If you put just 2 PPs up, bang, bang, here and here, and this one you couldn't see the name, and this one you couldn't see the name, and all you saw were the figures and the class and the running lines and things of that nature for horse A as opposed to horse B, and guess what? Horse B could be anyone, including the 3-year-old girls. Horse A is going to just pound those horses on her best, and horse A is Abel Tasman. There's really, to date anyway, there is no horse in that race, in this prospective field, that has run anything close to what Abel Tasman is capable of on her best day. The problem is, as a handicapper, you got to figure out what version are you going to get. Are you going to get the version that we saw in the Zenyatta? Or are you going to see the version that we saw up in the Person Lenson? Now, something else is a little bit of a side piece to that Zenyatta. It's a scenario, again, there was that illness going through the Baffert barn. There's a scenario where she just was not feeling up to par, and it sounds like she has improved in her workouts and she's back to being the old Abel Tasman. If that's the case, more and more I look at it, I don't know that anyone can beat her. But there's always that sort of tough piece in the back of your head saying, how can I trust you off of such a disaster? We'll find out. That's a decision for you to make. The Cotillion is the highlight for the 3-year-old fillies as far as the preps leading into the Classic, into the Distaff, into the Breeders' Cup is concerned. Simply because you had Monomoy Girl, who is the overwhelming favorite. She's going to be 3-year-old champion filly. I would imagine, barring some sort of just completely, barring her not showing up and Midnight Bisou winning, Monomoy Girl will be the 3-year-old filly champion. I don't think she should have come down in this race. Midnight Bisou was the one that took advantage of it, and you know what? I suppose you can make the case that she was a little bit compromised, but I still don't think Monomoy Girl was ever going to lose, and I don't think she should have been disqualified. For evidence, here's the stretch run.
Open up. Midnight Bisou, the only one in with a chance now on the inside of separation of powers, has dropped back to third. It's Monomoy Girl, last furlongs on the inside. Here comes Midnight Bisou. Monomoy Girl drifting in just a bit. Midnight Bisou will have to switch to the outside. Midnight Bisou is coming on. Monomoy Girl digs in. Midnight Bisou on the outside, a late surge. Monomoy Girl, Midnight Bisou, Monomoy Girl, break out the crown and let the coronation begin. Monomoy Girl is simply...
Now, I look at it more and more from a speed figure standpoint. And again, this is the time of year where horses can take a step forward, particularly the 3-year-olds. But those girls have not run anything close enough to run with Abel Tasman. Wonder Godot was also in that race. There's a chance that she runs in the Distaff. And to be honest with you, I would be mildly intrigued with Wonder Godot. Mildly intrigued if she were to show up there. Just because of the distance. But to date, Monomoy Girl has not run anything remotely fast enough to really, truly run with the best that Abel Tasman has. And I'm not saying that as a knock or a question. Monomoy Girl is fantastic. I might pick her. I don't know. But she is going... A fact is a fact. She's going to need to take a step forward if Abel Tasman runs her best in order to beat Abel Tasman. And that's the same case for every other horse in that race. So we'll find out what we get. Who knows? Midnight Bisou, my concern with her is the distance. I think she is... Truth be told, I think she's probably best at a flat mile, going 1 turn. But I understand where the money is and where everyone's bread is buttered. 2 turns, mile and 16th, mile and an 1/8. Mile and 16th, I think she can get. Obviously, we saw that in the Cotillion. Mile and an 1/8, I think you start pushing it. I don't think that's what she really wants. And to me, that's why I would only be using her underneath, if at all, in a race like the Distaff. I personally think she'd be the horse to beat in the Filly and Mare Sprint, but that's not going to happen. She'll be running in the Distaff. And again, I'd be mildly intrigued with Wonder Godot should they go here, because she's run well at Churchill in the past, and a mile and an 1/8 will be her friend. Again, this race, for me, for the longest time, it looked like, you're going to have Abel Tasman, you're going to have Elate, you're going to have Unique Bella, you name it. You're going to have just, who knows what that Wildcat's going to be, and she may even go here. She won that Beldame out of Belmont a couple weeks back, but it looked like it was going to be an absolute war. Still might be a war, but the questions, I think, are much more prevalent than maybe I thought they were going to be, or certainly than I had about 3 or 4 months ago. We'll find out. The Distaff should be a good one.